Hey y'all, welcome to another powerful, brand new story. I really hope you love it, and if you do, make sure to join the fam by hitting that subscribe button and dropping a comment to let us know where you're watching from. Let's dive in.
Ethan Grayson sat alone in his penthouse office, high above Manhattan. The city below buzzed with life, but up here, everything was silent, sterile. The walls were steel and glass, his desk a sleek slab of black marble. He could afford anything. He just couldn't buy meaning. 52 years old, the billionaire CEO of Grayson Tech had built a global empire from scratch. People envied his life: private jets, island villas, and dinners with presidents. But what they didn't see was what haunted him the most: the crushing silence when the day ended. He had no wife. No children. No family left. Just board meetings, numbers, and obligations. It was past midnight when the call came. Ethan was reviewing quarterly reports when his phone buzzed, an unknown number. He almost ignored it. But something in the quiet, something instinctive, made him answer. "Hello?" A child's voice, weak and trembling, crackled through the speaker. "Dad, it's me. Please come get me. I'm scared." Ethan froze. He blinked, unsure if he was hearing things. I'm sorry, who is this?" The voice was young. A boy. 8, maybe 9 years old. American accent. "Dad, I don't know where I am. But it's cold. Please hurry. Don't let him find me again." His heart thudded in his chest. "Kid, I think you have the wrong number." A pause. Then the boy whispered, "You always say that." Click. The line went dead. Ethan stood, phone pressed to his ear. The dial tone buzzed, loud and accusing. He stared at the screen. No name. No location. Just unknown number. It had to be a prank. Some glitch. He had no children. He was sure of that. Right. But he couldn't shake the voice. The desperation. The fear. He called his assistant, Olivia, waking her. "Trace a number for me. Unknown ID. Just came through. Get me anything, location, tower, ping, whatever you can." She didn't ask questions. She never did. By morning, Olivia had something. The call pinged off a tower in upstate New York, near a town called Larchwood. Population under 2,000. Signal came from a prepaid phone. Disposable. No registration. Ethan's eyebrows furrowed. "Larchwood?" She nodded. "Rural, middle of nowhere kind of place. Want me to call local authorities?" "No." He paused. "I'll go myself." She hesitated. "Ethan, it could be a scam." "I know. But what if it's not?" Larchwood was a quiet town tucked between forests and hills. Ethan arrived in his black Escalade, his presence immediately noticeable. Locals watched as he stepped out in tailored clothes, clearly not from around here. He asked around discreetly, showing no photos. He didn't have any. Just a voice in his head and a gut feeling that wouldn't let go. At the gas station, the cashier, a wiry teen, narrowed his eyes. "You looking for a kid? Blonde? Real quiet? Wears a red hoodie?" Ethan's breath caught. "Yes. He was here last week. With some guy. Creepy dude. Didn't talk much." The kid looked scared. "Did you get a plate number?" "No, sorry. But they went east. Toward the old lumber mill." Ethan didn't hesitate. He drove. The road to the mill was rough, barely paved, cracked and overgrown. The forest closed in, tall trees swallowing the sunlight. He found the mill. Abandoned, rusting, the roof half collapsed. But recent tire tracks crunched under his boots. Inside, the silence was eerie. Dust hung in the air. Ethan crept past broken machinery and shattered windows. Then he heard it. A faint whimper. He followed the sound. Around a corner. Behind an old office door. He opened it. A boy sat curled on the floor, arms around his knees. Dirt-smudged face, red hoodie, blue eyes filled with terror. When he looked up and saw Ethan, he whispered, "You came." Ethan knelt stunned. "Who are you?" The boy looked at him like it was obvious. "I'm Nathaniel. Your son." Ethan stared at the boy. Nathaniel. His eyes, bright blue, rimmed with fear, bore into Ethan like they knew him. The boy was thin, too thin, and his hands shook as he hugged his knees. "I'm not your father," Ethan said softly, trying to stay calm. I've never had a son." Nathaniel flinched, like he'd been slapped. "But you are. You came. Just like I knew you would." Ethan's heart thudded. He glanced around the room, empty except for broken shelves and a torn sleeping bag. It smelled like mold and rust. "Where's the man you were with?" he asked. "He left this morning. Said he was getting food? But he always comes back." That wasn't good. Ethan crouched, lowering himself to the boy's level. "We need to leave. Now." Nathaniel's eyes filled with panic. "What if he comes back? What if he finds us?" "He won't," Ethan said, though he wasn't sure. "I won't let anything happen to you." He offered his hand. Nathaniel hesitated, then slowly reached out, his fingers cold and dirty. Ethan helped him up, surprised by how light he was. The boy couldn't have weighed more than 50 pounds. They hurried to the Escalade. Ethan opened the back door and Nathaniel climbed in silently. As soon as the door shut, he locked the vehicle and started the engine. "What's your last name, Nathaniel?" he asked, trying to stay calm as they sped down the cracked road. The boy was quiet, watching the trees pass. "I don't know," he said finally. Ethan glanced at him through the mirror. "Do you know your birthday?" Nathaniel shook his head. "Your mom? She died. Long ago. I don't remember her face." Ethan swallowed hard. "Who was the man?" The boy's voice dropped to a whisper. "He said I belonged to him. He said I was his ticket." "Ticket to what?" "He was going to find my dad," Nathaniel said. "He said you owed him money? He said you ruined his life?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "What was his name?" Raymond Burke." That name hit Ethan like a punch to the chest. Raymond Burke had been his college roommate. A brilliant programmer who spiraled into addiction. Years ago, Ethan had refused to fund one of Ray's sketchy ventures, and Ray had lashed out, blaming him for his collapse. They hadn't spoken in over 20 years. Could Ray have kidnapped a child, just to get to him? Ethan reached for his phone and called Olivia. "I need you to dig up everything you can on Raymond Burke. Last known addresses, credit history, associates." "Now." Olivia didn't ask why. "On it." They reached a nearby town and stopped at a clinic. Nathaniel needed medical attention. He was dehydrated, had bruises on his arms, and a healing fracture on his left wrist. The doctor asked questions, but Ethan simply said he'd found the boy abandoned and would call the authorities. When they were alone again in a quiet waiting room, Nathaniel looked up at him. "Are you going to leave me?" Ethan met his gaze. "No. But you said I'm not your son." Ethan took a breath. "I don't know what you are to me, Nathaniel. But I do know this: whatever's happened to you, you're not alone anymore." Nathaniel nodded slowly, eyes shining. Ethan brought him to a hotel for the night. He bought clean clothes, food, and something he hadn't bought in years, a stuffed animal. A gray dog with floppy ears. When Nathaniel saw it, his lip quivered. "I've never had a toy." Ethan couldn't speak. He just knelt and hugged him tightly. The next morning, Olivia called. "I found him. Burke. He's been in and out of rehab. Arrested twice for fraud. Last 6 months he's been living off the grid. I also found something strange." "What?" "A woman named Melissa Hart. She filed a paternity suit against you 20 years ago, and dropped it." Ethan frowned. "I don't know that name." "She was working at Grayson Tech in 2004. Admin assistant. Quiet, nothing special on file. She vanished not long after filing the claim. Moved towns. changed her name. She died 3 years ago in a car accident. Ethan's blood ran cold. Was there a child? Yes. A boy. Record sealed. But I think it's him, Ethan. His hands trembled. I might have a son. Olivia's voice softened. It looks like it. And Burke must have known. He found the boy first. Ethan turned to Nathaniel, who was curled under the hotel blanket, fast asleep. For the first time in decades, Ethan Grayson felt something deeper than success or power. He felt purpose. Ethan sat in the hotel armchair, unable to sleep. The morning light crept through the curtains, casting a faint glow over the sleeping boy. His son. Even saying it in his mind felt surreal. 20 years ago, he'd been too busy building an empire to notice much of anything, especially not a quiet admin assistant named Melissa Hart. He tried to remember her face, but it was a blur. Had they been involved? A one-time mistake? A forgotten night? Could he have fathered a child and never known? Nathaniel stirred under the covers and opened his eyes slowly. You stay, he said, voice still raspy. Ethan nodded. Told you I would. Nathaniel smiled weakly. Does that mean you believe me? Ethan sat on the edge of the bed. I don't have all the answers yet. But I believe you're telling the truth. And I believe you deserve to be safe. Nathaniel looked down. Ray said you wouldn't care. That rich people don't care about anyone but themselves. Ethan's throat tightened. He was wrong. A knock came at the door. Ethan stood cautiously and looked through the peephole. It was Olivia. He opened the door, and she stepped inside with a tablet and a small envelope in hand. I got a judge to unseal the paternity documents from Melissa's case, she said, handing him the envelope. There's a sample of Nathaniel's DNA from the clinic yesterday. We'll send it in today, expedited. Ethan nodded. And the file? She pulled up the scanned court record. Melissa claimed you were the father. The timeline matches. She worked at Grayson Tech for 11 months before she quietly resigned. No other potential fathers listed. Ethan felt like the walls were closing in. If this is true, he said slowly, I failed both of them. Her and the boy. Olivia looked at him. Or you're being given a second chance. Later that day, they drove back toward Manhattan. Ethan had arranged a private suite at a pediatric center, where Nathaniel would receive full medical care and counseling. He wanted the boy somewhere safe. Somewhere secure. But as they reached the city outskirts, something felt off. A black van had been following them since the highway. Ethan tried to dismiss it, but when the van mirrored every exit and lane shift, his instincts kicked in. He grabbed his phone and called Olivia, who was in the SUV behind them. We're being tailed, he said. Black van. Possibly Burke. I'll alert private security. Pull off at the next exit. We'll regroup at the service plaza. Ethan nodded and gently reached back to Nathaniel. Hey buddy, keep your seatbelt tight, okay? Nathaniel's eyes widened. Is it him? I don't know. But I won't let him touch you. Ethan took the next exit, pulling into a quiet service plaza. His security team wasn't far behind. But before they arrived, the van sped up. Ethan watched in the mirror as it screeched to a halt behind them. A man jumped out. Raymond Burke. He looked older, broken down, greasy hair, sunken eyes, but the rage in his face was unmistakable. You! He shouted, storming toward the car. You think you can take him from me? Ethan got out slowly, motioning for Nathaniel to stay inside. He's not yours, Ray. Ray's hands trembled. He's mine as much as yours. I raised him. I fed him. You used him. You hurt him. Ray's expression twisted. You think you're better than me, Ethan? Just because you've got money? You left her. You left both of them to rot. I didn't know. Ray screamed and lunged. But before he could reach Ethan, 2 security guards tackled him to the ground. Sirens blared in the distance. Olivia had already called the police. Raymond Burke was arrested on the spot. Charges pending: kidnapping, endangerment, assault. As they loaded him into the squad car, he snarled at Ethan one last time. You don't get to be the hero. You were never there. Ethan stood frozen. Because Ray was right, he hadn't been there. But maybe now, he could be. Back at the city clinic, Nathaniel underwent a full evaluation. He was recovering, slowly, but the emotional scars were deeper than the physical. That night, as they sat together in the quiet hospital room, Nathaniel reached for Ethan's hand. Will I have to go somewhere else? He asked. Like a home? Ethan looked at him for a long moment. If the test says you're my son, then you have a home. With me. And if it doesn't? Ethan gently squeezed his hand. Then I'll fight for you anyway. Tears welled in Nathaniel's eyes. Nobody ever said that before. The boy leaned into him, resting his head against Ethan's chest. And for the first time in years, Ethan Grayson didn't feel empty. He felt like a father. 2 days later, Ethan sat in his office, watching the city skyline through a wall of glass. His phone lay on the desk, silent. Too silent. The DNA results were due today. He hadn't told Nathaniel yet. He didn't want to get the boy's hopes up. Ethan had promised to protect him no matter what, but deep down, a fear gnawed at him. What if the test came back negative? What if the bond he felt wasn't real? The phone finally buzzed. He grabbed it, heart racing. It was Olivia. Ethan, she said gently. I have the results. He couldn't breathe. And? There was a pause. 99.9% match, she said softly. Nathaniel is your son. For a long moment, Ethan didn't speak. He couldn't. The air left his lungs. Everything around him blurred, papers, numbers, plans, all meaningless now. He had a son. A son who had suffered alone. A son who had called out for him in the darkness. And somehow, by some miracle, he'd heard him. I'm going to tell him, Ethan said, standing. He deserves to know. At the pediatric center, Nathaniel sat in a sunlit room, drawing dinosaurs with crayons. When Ethan entered, he looked up and smiled faintly. Hi. Hey, champ, Ethan said, pulling up a chair. Can we talk for a minute? Nathaniel set the crayon down, nervous. Am I going somewhere? Ethan shook his head. No. You're not going anywhere. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out the test results. They ran a special test, he explained. To find out if we're related. If I'm really your dad. Nathaniel's eyes widened. And? Ethan unfolded the paper, hands trembling. You're my son, Nathaniel. My real, biological son. The boy stared at him for a second, then burst into tears. Ethan reached forward and pulled him into his arms. It's okay, he whispered. You don't have to be scared anymore. Nathaniel clung to him. I knew you were real. I knew you'd come. Ethan's own eyes welled with tears. I'm sorry I wasn't there sooner. The boy shook his head. You're here now. Later that evening, Ethan sat with Olivia in the lounge outside Nathaniel's room. The boy was asleep, curled up with the stuffed dog Ethan had given him. He's going to need therapy, Olivia said quietly. Routine. Stability. School. A whole support system. I'll give him all of it, Ethan replied. Everything I have. Olivia looked at him. And you? Are you ready to be a dad? To change your life completely? Ethan didn't hesitate. It already has. In the weeks that followed, Ethan transformed. He stepped back from Grayson Tech's day-to-day operations and appointed a new COO. His board grumbled, investors raised eyebrows, but Ethan didn't care. For the first time in his life, business wasn't the most important thing. He moved into a townhouse on the Upper West Side, more space, more warmth. He hired a private tutor to ease Nathaniel back into learning and brought in therapists to help with the trauma. And every night, he read to his son before bed. Something he'd never imagined doing. They laughed. They cooked. They rebuilt trust, piece by piece. But it wasn't always easy. One night, Nathaniel woke screaming, nightmare after nightmare. Ethan rushed in, held him, soothed him. He was there. Nathaniel sobbed. Ray. He was in my closet. He can't hurt you, Ethan said firmly. I promise. But what if he gets out? Ethan held his son tightly. Then I'll still be here. And I'll protect you. Every time. Eventually, the boy calmed, resting his head on Ethan's chest. And in those quiet, fragile moments, Ethan realized, love wasn't something you earned with money or built with power. It was something you chose. Every day. Then one afternoon, while walking through Central Park, Nathaniel looked up at Ethan. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why didn't you know about me? Ethan took a breath. Your mom never told me. She tried, I think. But I wasn't paying attention. I was too busy with work, with my company. With things that don't matter now. Nathaniel looked down. I miss her. Even though I don't remember her. I miss her too, Ethan said. More than I ever thought I would. They sat on a bench, watching kids play by the fountain. The world felt different now, softer, fuller. Do you think she'd be happy you found me? Nathaniel asked. Ethan wrapped his arm around his son. I think she's been guiding me to you all along. 6 months later, Ethan stood in a courtroom, dressed in a tailored suit, his heart pounding in a way it never had before. Not during board meetings. Not during billion-dollar acquisitions. This was different. This was real. Across the room, Nathaniel sat between Olivia and a social worker, his legs swinging above the floor, his small hands gripping the edges of his chair. He looked nervous, but when his eyes met Ethan's, he smiled. The judge shuffled papers, adjusting his glasses. Mr. Ethan Grayson, he said, are you prepared to finalize the legal adoption of Nathaniel Hart? Ethan stepped forward. Yes, Your Honor. You understand that by doing so, you assume full legal and parental responsibility. Financial, emotional, and otherwise. I do. And you understand that from this day forward, Nathaniel Hart will be your legal son? Ethan swallowed. That's all I've wanted. The judge looked at the boy. Nathaniel, do you wish to be adopted by Mr. Grayson? Nathaniel's voice was barely above a whisper. Yes, sir. And do you wish to take his name? Nathaniel hesitated, then looked at Ethan. Can I have both? Ethan smiled. Of course, buddy. You can keep Hart if you want. The judge nodded, pleased. Very well. I hereby grant the petition. From this moment forward, Nathaniel Hart Grayson is the legal son of Ethan Alexander Grayson. A gavel struck. The room applauded. Nathaniel jumped off his seat and ran into Ethan's arms. Ethan lifted him off the ground, holding him like he'd never let go. I'm really yours now, Nathaniel whispered. Ethan's voice broke. You always were. Back home that evening, Ethan tucked Nathaniel into bed. The boy clutched his stuffed dog and beamed up at him. I want to put the certificate in a frame, he said. Right next to my bed. We'll get the best frame, Ethan said, ruffling his hair. Gold. Or maybe rocket ship shaped. Nathaniel giggled. Hey, Dad? Ethan's heart swelled. Yeah, son? Do you think Mom knows? Ethan sat down beside him. I think she does. And I think she's proud of you. Nathaniel nodded slowly, eyes glistening. Good night, Dad. Good night, Nate. He turned off the lamp and stood quietly in the doorway, watching his son drift off to sleep. His son. The words still felt like a miracle. Life changed, but in all the right ways. Ethan attended school functions. He learned how to pack lunches, how to braid hair, badly, when Nathaniel made friends with a girl who loved sharing styles. He went to parent-teacher meetings. He even learned how to play video games badly. They traveled, Grand Canyon, Boston, Disney World. They healed. Together. Nathaniel's nightmares grew less frequent. His laughter became louder. His questions deeper. One day, while walking through the old Grayson Tech building, Nathaniel stopped at a giant portrait of Ethan in the lobby. You used to care about this stuff a lot, didn't you? He asked. Ethan nodded. I did. Nathaniel tilted his head. Do you still? Ethan smiled. Not the same way. It's just a building. You're my legacy. Nathaniel grinned. Cool. But I still think the picture makes you look like a supervillain. Ethan laughed, louder than he had in years. One final surprise came in the form of a letter. An old one. Found tucked in the back of Melissa Hart's sealed records, unopened, dated 20 years ago. It was addressed to Ethan. He sat in his study, unfolded the yellowing page, and read her words. Ethan, I don't expect you to remember me. We worked together briefly. One night things happened. And now I'm pregnant. I don't want anything from you. I just thought you deserved to know that somewhere out there, there's a piece of you growing. A child who will one day wonder where he came from. If you choose to look for us, I'll never stand in your way. And if you don't, I'll still tell him you mattered. Take care, Melissa. Ethan sat back, eyes closed. She had tried. She had reached out. And now, despite the years and pain and silence, her son was safe. Their son. One sunny afternoon, Ethan and Nathaniel stood in the backyard of their new home. They were planting a tree, something Nathaniel insisted they do together. Why a tree? Ethan asked. Because it grows, Nathaniel said, patting the soil. Like us. Ethan smiled. Good answer. As they stood under the budding branches, Ethan looked at the boy beside him. From a single phone call, one desperate cry, his world had changed. He had found more than a child. He had found redemption. He had found family. And in the quiet warmth of that moment, Ethan Grayson realized something simple and true. Sometimes life doesn't give you what you expected. It gives you what you were always meant to have.